Well, good afternoon, everyone. It's an absolute pleasure having you join us. I wish you a wonderful, wonderful, cold, icy day. Very unusual for South Africa. Nonetheless, we need it at least once in a while so we can appreciate the warm weather we normally have. Thank you for joining us. I want to talk to you very quickly about the investment that you're making today, because time is money and you're investing time. And what I'm going to go through in the next 15 to 20 to 35 minutes with you, hopefully then to respond to a whole series of questions, which I would love to hear from you through the chat line, is effectively where we are as a country. That really does matter. You know, building businesses, growing businesses right now in the current climate is fundamentally different to where it was 3 months ago, and very different to where we were a year ago. And in fact, you recall, going back even 3 years under the Zoom administration, a very different environment indeed. So context always matters. And within that, I'm going to talk to you about the 5 Ps of progress. And these Ps are all based on what we're seeing with clients we're currently working with, both here and in the United Kingdom. The environments are very, very different from each other, indeed. But we're seeing a fairly consistent pattern of behavior that's leading to growth even in this very, very uncertain, uncomfortable period of time that we're in. I then want to get very practical and share with you what we are seeing as a 1 to 3 month plan of action. The economy has effectively begun to open up again at the beginning of this month. But how you go back into the economy, what you should be doing, how you spend time most effectively, how you direct your resources, and what risks you should be looking out for really will matter over the next 1 to 3 months. Why 1 to 3 months? Because it depends very much on what type of business you're in. If you are in the social economy, the tourism economy, the restaurant economy, the physical casino economy, the eventing economy, circumstances there are very, very different to if you are in an essential service or in the industrial economy itself. Thereafter, I'm going to share with you what we're seeing and what we are certainly providing to our clients as a 3 to 6 month plan after we've been through the first initial period. This is aptly named resetting your business. This is named rebuilding your business. And then already we have got some clients that are in their 6 to 24 month plan. And that's about reigniting the business. I'm going to end off with an opportunity to address Q&A. So again, you're more than welcome to send questions through. There's a chat functionality. I'm sure you all now are very comfortable with Zoom. Send the questions through there. And those questions that come through, I'll answer directly. So to get going, let's just look at the context. Where do we stand? What do we stand? What is going on? So pre-COVID, our economy grew at a fantastic rate of about 0.2% in its GDP growth. And honestly, it's astounding that a country like ours can only grow at that rate. A large part of it is because of the politics. We have a ruling party that has 4 different ideologies around how the economy should be managed, how it should be run. One of them is very pragmatic. The other is very socialist, communist orientated. The third is very blue chip corporate orientated, coming from our president. And then of course we've got the 4th dimension, which are the remaining looters from the Zoom administration. And it's so true that a fish rots from its head, because if leadership cannot unite, whether it be in a country, in a corporate, or in your very own business, whether it be in your own family, you can never have consistency, you can never have direction, you cannot build momentum. So the politics pre-COVID was very scrappy, very messy. It started to clear up. Power has been a problem in the country, as we all know, for 3, 4, 5 years. And that is thanks to Eskom and the way Eskom has been mismanaged. And corporates behaved as corporates always do. That is late payments, commanding the economy, dominating certain sectors, and holding everyone to account. The corporate history in South Africa has in many ways stymied, in my view, a lot of our economic growth and opportunity. Within that environment, Auric clients, on average, grew their turnovers on a compounded annual basis at 29.8%. So if you add up and stack up the maths, year one, 29.8%, call it 30%. End of year two, the compounded growth rate sits at around 70%. They were doubling in size more or less every 2.5 to 3 years. Then we got COVID. We're right in the middle of the storm and it's choppy out there and very, very uncertain. What the economy is doing is going backwards. We don't know what the trends are around the economy still this year, because I think there remains an enormous amount of uncertainty around COVID. A virus is a virus, and a virus has its own life. It doesn't care about any of us. It's not personal to any of us. We're all in the same boat around the virus. What's increasingly clear is that all the epidemiologists are still trying to figure out the virus itself. The view we've certainly taken as a business is that with all our clients, we are arguing it's here for the next 24 months, at least. It will lessen, but it is here. It is here. And we need to work with that as the scenario against which we grow our businesses. Our politics seemed to be aligning at one point in time. I think that what government did in the early stages, not government, our president did in the early stages, gained and gleaned a lot of respect, but very quickly, through the nuttiness of some of our ministers, it's created a lot of uncertainty. The health strategy was solid. The economic strategy has been a mess. Power, well, we've had very few blackouts, but fear not, they will come back. They will come back. And I've seen recently, Gwede Mantashe, whatever works in that man's head perplexes me still. Gwede Mantashe has now put an RFP for a nuclear power plant to again take us backwards in time rather than forwards into the future. How valid it is, whether it's a political ploy, whether it's real, you never know with this political party. And that's fundamentally part of what's wrong with building this country. Corporates have been hurt in the most definitive, deliberate way. Before COVID, what we had noticed in the corporate landscape is that corporates were restructuring literally on an annual basis. And the thing about a corporate is that when it sets its big plan for the year, by the time that plan comes to the ground, it's a year later and already there's a new strategy in play. Corporate traction in the economy at best has been very, very compromised. It really has not taken a grip on the economy itself. During COVID, I think corporates have bled even further. We, in our experience in working with them, saw so few of them actually prepare for the lockdown. They did not enable their staff. They did not digitize sufficiently. There was no clear direction given in many cases, in many instances, other than at the very, very top tier of a corporate. So it's yet to be seen where corporates will lie at the end of this period and at the end of this year. But I think they're going to be severely hampered and quite badly hurt. From an Auric point of view, at the moment, if I look at the average compound annual growth rates of our clients, it's tracking towards 25% for the end of this period. It's down from what we had pre-COVID. We measure from from February to March, or March to February, but we're tracking around 25%. Post-COVID, let's say from next year onward, or at least from December onward, what we're seeing is that the economy will be in a 3.4% growth trajectory. What I think is going to change is that COVID is going to humble a lot of people. When the politicians see that there is no money coming into the coffers, I think that the country is going to center itself, and I hope it centers itself around an economic growth strategy that might well be largely informed by an intervention from the IMF. I'm hoping that's the case, because what it then does is it allows our government to blame an outside party for the tough measures that need to be taken. Within it, our politics, it's as good a guess as anybody's. But I really hope that what we were having before COVID, where we seem to be centering around a Ramaphosa program of action, continues and deepens. I'm hopeful of it, but I'm not certain. I think we will continue to have problems with our power until Greta Montash actually deregulates the energy environment. So very similar to pre-COVID. And I think corporates are going to be licking their wounds in the most intense way possible. So what I'm saying is that pre-COVID, we had a very similar look and feel to the economy that we will have after COVID, but with one fundamental difference. I think we will only see 70% of the old economy showing itself in the new economy. From an auric point of view, in our client base, we are projecting a 50% average annual compounded growth rate. And I'm going to share with you why that is. So if we look at the, let's call it 5 Ps that we have seen in amongst our client base, both here and in the United Kingdom. The first thing that we've seen is that the business owners we've worked with, and we have worked hard with them to center their focus of attention only on what they have 100% control of. There were a number of webinars we have run over the last 6-7 weeks, and one of them was really about managing your mindset, taking control of your own personal psychology. We used the Kubler-Ross change curve, and we had specified that when you have a sudden shock, you go into a period of frustration, expressed either as fear or anger. And if you don't manage your way through that effectively, well, in whatever emerges, you land up in a space of depression. So you crash down into a well of depression. And if you don't manage yourself out of there, you can remain there for some time. The way to get out of there is to focus on actions, not thoughts, not ideas, not conversations, but by physically doing things within your own environment and your own business. From that, truth in action says you will see what's working, what's not, leave what's not, focus on what is, and that will then start to reshape the business for a new environment that I think is here to stay for some time. It was really interesting. Yesterday, I was involved in a webinar with around 86 odd businesses out of the City of London. What's happened in the UK is that the English government or the British government has offered something called a furlough incentive. And that means as a business owner, you can simply send your staff home, shut up the shop for the period of the lockdown, and they've had as long a lockdown as we have had, and government will pay up to 80% of your staff's salary, but on condition that they don't work. So they sit at home, they get paid 80% of their salary, and now with the economy opening, these businesses arrive back and everyone's now expected to, I suppose, continue as usual. I then put forward an idea that maybe the economy won't return back to normal. And when I was asked why, I said because the clients that we certainly have worked with, we did not help or support or let them, for that matter, close down. We actively said, and we took a view, that in the lockdown, we're going to sail this ship in the rough, choppy sea, and we're going to see in that the weakness in the hull and which crew members can cope with rough weather riding, because that immediately gives you a very good insight on what adjustments and changes you need to make to your business model and how you need to respond to the market, and in that, shape the market so that when everyone else arrives, you've changed the rules and the nature of the game, because that's how you get ahead. Not every one of our clients bought into it, both here and there, but the majority did, because we then agreed we should only focus on what you have 100% control over. And that's two things: your attitude, which leads to your action. And through that, the lockdown has been valuable beyond measure. Next was about purpose. And it's very easy to forget your purpose, especially in a time of shock. Passion counts, it matters. It is the wind in your sails, it's the fuel in the engine that keeps you going and going and going. But if you're not clear on the purpose behind why you build your business the way you do, it can become very, very disconcerting when you constantly are facing one assault or one challenge after the next. We've agreed and clarified with all our clients that their purpose is made up of three elements. A, you're building an asset of value. And that means you're building a business that will generate income. And that income must grow over time. And it must grow consistently in a compounded manner. So if you acquire a share, for example, on the stock exchange, you buy it for 50 Rand and you hold it for 5 years. You want to secure dividends of at least 5 or 10 Rand a year consistently, with the dividend growing from year to year to year. It's an income generating asset. The next thing we agreed is that the asset itself needs to appreciate in its capital value. If you buy it at 50 Rand with a view to sell it 5 years later, you need to target an exit price of 200 or 300 Rand. If it's at 300 Rand, you've earned a 250 Rand capital gain. 94.6% of businesses started globally fail to sell, and in that, it puts the business owners in a position where they forego the opportunity to reap the reward for risk and sacrifice through the capital gain they enjoy in an exit in their business. And then the third feature of an asset is that it needs to be a business that can generate income and grow its capital value independently of you. If you are the central reason why the business exists, when I come to acquire your business and I see that without you there, the probability of the business performing in the future as it has in the past is very, very low, I either offer you $1 for the business, or I find an alternative option to invest my money into. That, more than any other reason, is why 94.6% of businesses started failed to sell. So when we came into the beginning of COVID, we got perspective right, we got purpose right, and through that we established partnership. The nature of how we work with you is very, very intimate, and we work with you on a very consistent basis. And through that, we demonstrate empathy. We ourselves are an organization that was founded by starting, building, and selling 12 businesses. It included failures. It included listings on the stock exchange. It included sales to corporates and management buyouts. We have ridden the story of what it is to take an idea and translate it into an asset with an exit. That's the difference between being empathetic as opposed to sympathetic. All the messaging we are hearing from government around the plight of SMEs, how useful has it been? Sympathy we don't want. Empathy matters, because empathy is what allows us to connect and identify with each other. Through that, we've had a very strong role in constantly ensuring that the perspective is we only pay attention in our relationship to what we have control over. And thereafter, on that basis, we held each other to account. We said to our clients, the growth rates are set. The economy is irrelevant, because the economy had not grown before COVID, and yet our clients grew. And the way they grew was by improving performance and efficiency, by going and outwitting, outplaying, and outperforming competitors in the same industry and sector and eating up their clients. In a no-growth economy, that's where you find your growth. The fourth P is really about positioning. You know, we get taught that the way you position your business, in other words, the way that you let your business stand apart from your competitors, is by demonstrating what a fantastic product you have. And so many businesses I look at boast about the products that they have on their websites. They talk about the features. They talk about how brilliant the feature is and what sets that feature apart from a competing product. Or we use price propositions and we say we offer you the best value, but really it's a definition of price. The third thing that we promise is we say our service sets us apart. And yet when we really look, service, if you're building an asset of value, means that service occurs at a certain standard without you there. And every time I've certainly looked, the business owner has been central to ensuring that the levels of service promised are there because the business owner has a very strong presence in the delivery of that service. We don't believe that those propositions are valid. We don't believe that you can have a product advantage for too long. There's simply too much competition out there. We don't believe that you can maintain consistency in a price advantage unless you have an enormous bank budget behind you. And we certainly don't believe that service can be consistently applied as you grow and scale. What we believe is what sets you apart and what should distinguish you is understanding A, who you serve, and more specifically, what problems they have that in you, with your product or service, in doing what you do, can solve that problem for them at a value lower than the cost of the problem itself. Secondly, that you do so through an experience that makes them wanting you to come back and do it again. That proposition is a distinguishing proposition. To be problem solving and experience curating. In order to do that, you cannot be all things to all people. And this leads me on to positioning as a specialist. Because specialization for a South African business on the rand dollar currency we have is the entry point into the future for hard currencies operating and being delivered out of South Africa. It's not a fantasy, it's a reality because we are seeing it in our current client base. If you do not distinguish yourself by narrowing down who you serve, understanding deeply and profoundly what problem they have, seeing in how you solve it, what experience would best secure them on a consistent basis, then you simply are fighting all your competitors by showing who's got the best product, who's got the best price, and a weak promise of service. Finally, with our clients, we went and we identified 5 impediments to growth, and systematically we removed the impediments. The first impediment that we all feel is generating consistent revenues. What always amazes me about South Africa and the environment we're in is we run 12 months of operating overheads and costs, and yet we run 10 months of revenue. Think about it, the December period to halfway through January, dead. The April period, with the 5,312 holidays that we choose to have as a country, kills the economy literally from the beginning of the year all the way through to around the first week of May. We lose 2 to 3 months of active revenue generation. The second problem, of course, is that we haven't mechanized our ability to generate revenues. And if we think about what's involved in generating revenues, It really is a process of finding, winning, and securing clients consistently. It is impossible to do if you don't understand what sets you apart from your competitors. It is impossible to do if once you have understood what sets you apart from your competitors, you don't mechanize lead generation, in other words, the marketing function, and lead conversion, in other words, the sales function. By mechanize, we talk from an auric point of view, system. Activities in a sequence that can be measured, most importantly can be taught, can secure a well-defined job description that can support effective recruitment, and most importantly is supported with training. To get that right, you need simplicity. To get simplicity right, you need a very clear positioning. I think back to a number of our clients. In fact, I think back to one of the most interesting clients, I suppose because they were at the very early stages of Auric with us, which was a bakery and is a bakery still, where this individual at the age of 54, having started the business at the age of 29, was involved in serving not only small bakeries, but hotels. Not only hotels, but consumers like you and I. And not only consumers, but supermarkets too. Each of the customer groups that he served through his business, which was doing around 55 million at the time annually, created absolute chaos in his ability to market concisely, effectively, and do so with a problem-orientated mindset. And importantly, became impossible to deliver that by understanding when you market, what activities do you need, in what sequence, and how would you measure them for each of the small bakeries which behaved differently, the consumers which bought differently, the corporate hotel groups which operated differently, and the supermarkets which were trading orientated in every sense. Incredibly complicated to simplify to a point where you can build a marketing system that really communicates effectively to one audience. We see you, we hear you, we understand the problem you have. And through that, because we see and hear you and understand you, you can trust that we know the problem you are requiring from us to have solved. The next thing is growing without chaos. If you think about the process, the cycle of a business, you have lead generation, the marketing function. That, if your positioning is clean, clear, and simple, becomes far more effective, far more scalable, and significantly more affordable. When leads come in, because you're sending and landing the right message out there, and your sales teams engage those leads in a systematic way, because they've understood why you as a customer are knocking at the door of that business, and they've understood what process they need to take you through in order to get you to acquire the service with certainty and clarity that that service or product will solve your problem as a customer in the manner that it was communicated through marketing. Then handing it over to operations for fulfillment and lead fulfillment is the next critical step. If you can get your fulfillment process, your operational processes, to be notified and aware of what's coming down the pipe, and then on a consistent basis, fulfill the promises you've made to customers because you've implemented proper fulfillment systems, activities in a sequence that can be measured and can be taught, and on that basis can be managed consistently, you've closed the cycle of what makes a business work. Lead generation linked to lead conversion linked to lead fulfillment. If you are able to convert all of those activities into systems And those systems make up around 65 to 85 different activities, depending as to whether you're in the service sector or in the manufacturing or retail wholesale sector. Once you get that golden thread operating through, it takes you to a place where you can do the next and final piece right. And that is building and holding the right team. Without a doubt, one of the biggest challenges in business is finding the right people to do the right thing at the right time at the right price. If you think about how it ought to work, should you have your positioning right and you know what you stand for, that begins to emerge the brand of your business. Once you've got that right, you can land a message effectively through your marketing activities, lead generation done. Once you get inquiries coming in because you're resonating with the customers and clients you want, and you have a sales system to close those deals, lead conversion done. And once you have closed those deals, fulfilling your obligations to your customers that you have chosen to serve, because you have organized operations, lead fulfillment done. Now you're in a position where you know exactly what kind of people you need to run the marketing system to generate the leads, the sales system to close the leads, the operations and fulfillment system to deliver on your promises. How else do you employ people effectively? How else do you recruit for them? Every time we have placed adverts and we have recruited, we get 300, 400, 500 people applying for job opportunities. And what do I see? I see a CV that makes each of these 300, 400, 500 people look like they individually themselves built Apple or sent a rocket to the moon. Because the bullet points under their skills, achievements, and capabilities are as long as your and my arms together. It's impossible to evaluate whether that person is the right person for A, the job, and importantly, for the values and culture of your organization. Now, if you took a different view and said, I'm not looking for people to employ into a job. I'm looking for people to be system operators. I need system operators for marketing, for sales, in my ops and admin. What it then means is because you understand exactly what you need those individuals to do, you can test in the recruitment process and engagement process whether technically they're able to do those steps. That's the easy part. What you're then left with is making a decision around values. And every time you've employed someone who has different values to the values of your organization, if you're honest with me and yourself, you'll think back to the nightmares that created for you. 3 elements that we get right: consistency in revenues. We understand how to position the business. We've agreed on that positioning. We're landing our messages well. Through system. When people inquire, through system, lead conversion. Once deals are done, through system, fulfilling our promises. Those 3 elements allow you to get the right people to do the right thing at the right time on board. And that then releases your time so that as partners, we can focus on next level growth. More time leading, less time doing. Think about how you spend your day in your business. To what degree are you operationally in demand and required? And to what degree are you thinking about the big deals that should drive next level growth and next level value? If you've built the business right and you have a growth mindset, at least 70% of your time should be focused on strategic growth, not supporting organic growth. And then finally, it's about growth and profit. Very often we see and work with new clients who are growing fast, but as they're growing up, their operating overheads are tracking their growth rates too. To the extent that you build the business right is the extent to which you can achieve an increase in turnover, and stability in your operating overhead. In other words, the activities involved in lead generation, lead conversion, and fulfillment are contained and grow at a far lower level than the growth of your revenues grow. Because if you cannot broaden the gap between your growth rate in revenue and your growth rate in operating overhead, then I'm left asking, why do you do what you do? Because the capital appreciation in that business, as well as the income appreciation in that business, won't show any progress at all. If you build the business right by positioning effectively and then creating this platform of delivery, it lends itself to you spending more time on next level growth. And if that next level growth brings new revenue into the business without disturbing the system of delivery you have built in lead generation, lead conversion, and lead fulfillment, and it doesn't destabilize your team that you have created to support that, that's in effect what next level value means. So with that, I'm going to end off with 3 small case studies. These are clients that we're currently working with. We believe that what you should be doing right now is firstly, occupy a growth mindset. Let me pause there for a minute. A growth mindset doesn't mean you necessarily flush money into the business at all. It might mean that in fact you step back and consolidate the business. We took a view, which I shared with you earlier, that COVID provides the perfect opportunity for you to take your business and sail it hard and fast in the rough, choppy sea. See what's working, see what's not. See what's inefficient and see what can be improved. Because the time to do that is now. The reason is this: the entire environment is going to change. Already, consumer behavior has changed, whether it be in how people want to engage with service providers, or whether it be in the economics of your clients and customers. Things have fundamentally changed. During the last 60 days, the extent of digitization that we push down the pipe into all our clients has already yielded a whole series of effective efficiency gains. The reset period is where you engage with your clients and customers in a relationship format in order to understand how their world has changed. Because if you're a business that is well positioned, it means you understand who it is you serve, and through those conversations, because you understand empathetically what problems they have that you're attempting to solve, those conversations will yield to you insights into how the nature of your customer behavior is going to change, what the economics looks like, and as a result of that, how to change your value propositions to them. The marketing messages and your sales engagement processes pre-COVID need to be very, very different now in this new environment in order for you to get traction from them. At the beginning of the lockdown, we did some very interesting work with our recruitment businesses. You can imagine the lockdown arrives. The last thing anyone is thinking about is hiring staff. In fact, most people were thinking about retrenchments and redundancies. If I look at the example of one of our clients who opted to put most of their team on UIF and literally shut down over the period to go and learn how to make cupcakes, I guess, in what was seen as a forced sabbatical. This is a UK business. And when I look at a competing provider who in recruitment turned around and said, hang on a minute, some of our staff we will put onto UIF, some we will have to let go. But what they then did with the majority of their staff is they went back and engaged all their former clients. In doing so, they found their clients at home. And in the home environment, what they did is they capacitated their clients to become effective in doing work through Zoom and digital formats. At the same time, in speaking to their clients, they started to get an understanding of what remote working would look like. With the insights they gleaned in that over the first month of doing so, they went through to their commissioning clients, the CEOs of the businesses that they served, and they started to put down different talent requirements for a post-COVID economy. One wherein which they said, when we recruit for you in future, we're going to add 3 or 4 elements that indicate your ability and capacity to work remotely, but also your appetite and ability to work with technology. And through that, the lived experience of the CEOs of all their clients was, because they're orientated in the service industry, one that said, hang on a minute, that's absolutely right for what we need for the future. Because most of the team that we're working with, those that aren't able and capable of working remotely, and those that aren't able and have appetite to work with technology, are the weakest links. We're sailing in the storm, and we're looking to see which crew is the right crew to keep for us to go forward into the future ahead of our competitors. Incidentally, what they also did is they engaged us to provide a list of tasks that they could provide to their clients' front-end teams. In other words, those teams involved in sales and marketing, as well as their administrative and operational teams. The last thing they did, which was really interesting, and talk about bringing their brand into the homes of their clients, is they identified an extramural activity provider, and through that offered their clients free services for their clients to keep their kids active during the lockdown period. Their brand remained alive for 65 days. When they went back into the economy at the beginning of this month, their clients had their brand front of mind, live in mind. Their competitors learned how to make cupcakes. The reset period means you need to change the nature of your product and services to meet the new reality that your clients are experiencing. It's a 1 to 3 month process, and you need to undertake it because the risk you face in not doing it is simply reverting to doing things the way you did pre-COVID. If you do that, the likelihood of finding yourself redundant or unresponsive to your client's new reality is high. From there, we move on to a rebuild phase, because now we've learned what the new positioning ought to be. We have a sense of what the new problems look like for your clients. We have a greater sense of what kind of experience they want in having those problems solved. And that means we need to revert back to systems. Because if your objective in building an asset of value is to have 70% of your time focused on strategic growth opportunities, it means you need to get out of operations fast. You've reset your proposition. It's aligned to the reality and new experiences of your clients. Now you want to build the systems to deliver on that. And I want to share a story of one of our clients. It's a business that does around 80 odd million rand a year. They're involved in the rubber tire sector and service. That truck that you see on your screen costs anywhere between 18 to around 45 odd million rand, depending on whether it has a human being operating it or not. These trucks are used extensively in the mining sector. And the way the mining sector works is effectively you go to your ore body, you blast it, and then you haul it from where you blasted it to the refineries. These trucks all operate like a production line. They are mostly managed through GPS, and you identify 80 or 90 of them in a row, and they run sequentially from number 1 to number 80 in a continuous process, collecting the ore, taking it to the refinery, and repeating again and again and again. Because in the mining sector, the only thing you have control over is cost. You've got no control over the demand of your product, it's globally driven, and you've got no control over the cost or the price of the commodity, which is globally driven. The ability to maintain these trucks and keep them running consistently is critical and key. Because in the mining sector, you're working in very remote, dangerous areas, the space you have to work is also very, very limited. When one of these trucks cannot continue because a tire has burst or worn or been punctured, it stops all 80 trucks if the truck stops and fails on the production line itself. In the instance that it doesn't, it upsets all the mechanics and efficiencies of an 80 truck system moving down to a 79 or 78 truck system. And to this end, during the reset phase, we got our client to work more actively with the providers of maintenance services to these trucks in order to do tire repair on site. The way that it used to work, the truck is removed from the production line, the tire is removed, which takes an entire day. It's then placed on a low bed trailer and shipped off to the tire repair center, because the repairing of these tires, which stand sometimes 6 to 8 foot high, is not simple. A week later, the tire is returned and the truck is recommissioned. What they did during the reset period is focus on how to provide that entire activity on site at the mine over a period of 6 hours. So what used to take a week now takes 6 hours. In addition, what they're doing during the rebuild period is looking to see if they can place a device in the tire that communicates remotely the health and well-being of a tire, so that they can start to put a preventative maintenance program in place. So look at what that rebuild does. This all happened during the 60 days of lockdown. Firstly, the teams that they needed at mine sites were all available. Secondly, they kept all their engineers live, operating over the 60-day period in order to understand how to do this. They were able to run pilots during this period, understand the economics during this period, and with that, secure long-term contracts from what was formerly an event of replacing or repairing a tire, and then waiting for the next event to come along. They turned an event-based business through the rebuild of what they did into an annuity-based business. And with that, once they understood how they needed to communicate this, they built marketing systems, followed on by sales systems, followed on by on-site operational and fulfillment systems. What did their competitors do? They locked up shop. They put most of their team on UIF. They saw a decrease in mining activity, which there was. And they were constrained by all sorts of issues around being essential services. With the economy opening up at the beginning of this month, one of these providers is a step ahead, the other is on the back foot. The last piece of the strategy is now, as we are doing both with the recruitment clients that I spoke about earlier, the tire repair business that I spoke about earlier, we're reigniting. With this particular client, it's an early stage business in its third year. It does revenues of around 15, 16 million a year, and it operates drones. And what they did is they have got very, very fancy photographic capabilities on the drones themselves. Their core area of attention and focus was really in the construction sector, to look at concrete structures and understand the safety and certainty of a structure itself before it was signed off, after being commissioned, or for purposes of rehabilitation and repair. During this period, the construction sector shut down in its entirety. And what they did is found an opportunity to see where they could remove cost efficiencies out of sectors that had massive cost pressures. Again, they went into the mining sector. And through that, they identified and understood that one of the biggest environmental risks faced by the mining sector are dams that keep all the mine tailings. Effectively, all the wastewater gets pumped into it. The structure of that dam and the maintenance of that dam has to be done on a monthly basis. And you need to get compliance certificates that the dam is safe and sound, meeting environmental requirements. They were able to, using their technology, find a completely new market opportunity. Their problem-solving positioning landed in the lap of companies that looks after these tailing dams. Their ability to generate consistent messaging to those companies using their marketing systems in the rebuild phase, and then sales conversion systems, again in the rebuild phase, brought these new clients on board. They are able to reduce the cost of dam compliance by 70%. And through that are facing an opportunity across 260 dams in South Africa that would take their revenues from around 15 million a year up to about 142 odd million a year. That in its own right alone. They are at the reignite stage, and what that means is they have stepped well ahead of the traditional service providers that used to look after dam tailings, and they've approached us through our fund for substantial investment. That in the midst of a COVID economy lockdown is what was delivered by first resetting, secondly rebuilding, and because they were alive during that period, communicating actively with the perspective that they're only going to focus on what they have control over, with the positioning that they are there to build an asset of value, and through the pressure that was created in our relationship. They're one of the few businesses I know that are being funded in the midst of this period. I'm going to end it there, and I'm going to open up the floor for questions and answers. And through that, when I look at the chat line, I'm going to take a little bit of time to read them out and share them with you, although most of them are already shared amongst yourselves. From Marcus, how does one grow a business by 50% in an economy that's depressed? Yep, so we've got the forecasted growth of 3.4% for 2021. It'll be from a low base. Of course, it will be from a low base. Certain industries will be decimated, absolutely. How can an engineering business that provides industrial equipment into the mining and heavy industrial space grow in this environment? Well, I'm hoping I've answered part of that question through the two examples of the rebuild and reignite. Again, the mining environment is a wonderful environment for the simple fact that it is an environment that only has control over cost. To the extent that in doing what you do, you can quantify the problem that you believe you solve as an engineering business in the mining sector. That then helps you land your message effectively. But let's pause for a minute, because what does that require? It means you have to know who your customer is. So open cast mining is fundamentally different to deep mining. The way that you establish the site, the way you operate the site, the dangers, the challenges, the costs that flow on each of those sites are fundamentally different from each other. So when someone says, we specialize in providing services to mining, I'm left with the question saying, well, which part of mining? Is it open, shallow cast mines? Or is it deep mines? And the reason it matters is because your ability to understand the problem you solve and quantify the cost of that problem not being solved for the mine is where the point of distinction comes from. The next area of speciality is the experience that that mine would want in firstly learning about you, engaging with you, and then acquiring your service. So if you are a junior miner or a very well-established miner, the method of procurement and engagement is fundamentally different from each other. The technical issues in acquiring services in the coal sector are very different to the technical issues in acquiring services in the platinum sector. When we talk about an experience that a client wants in order to support you again and again and again, as businesses, we make the fundamental error of thinking we're always selling to one person. If you're selling to consumers and you're selling into a household, who makes the decision, but who influences it? To the extent that you understand your customer, not only in terms of demographics, but psychographics and dynamics, is the extent to which you can send into that household two messages. One to who makes the decision, and one to who influences the decision. When you're selling business to business, it's even more so, because you might be selling to the head of procurement on the mine, or so you think, but trust me, it's the mine site manager that has the greatest influence as to which service provider comes on board. And in your marketing activities, you need to engage different messages between those two individuals, and then a third into finance, and a third into the head offices, supply chain strategy systems people. 4 messages to land a simple message of the problem we've identified in your mining environment and how we intend to solve it. Once you get that right, I understand that there are RFPs, but you'll be most aligned to how that mine sees the most preferred supplier coming on board. From Nick, how do we get oversight to monitor all the moving parts of a business? In other words, marketing, sales, operations. It always seems to be that when one department works, the other department starts to underperform. If you think about what creates chaos in your business, I'm betting you it comes from one of two places. It either comes from sales and marketing, who, because these individuals might be target-driven or incentive-driven, will literally say yes to anyone and everything at any time, all the time. And what that means is you cannot get consistency around the types of clients you're getting on board in your business. Now, as a business owner, you might think, well, why does it matter? Because revenue is revenue and cash flow is king. It matters because if you cannot get consistency, you can't get consistency in your marketing message. You can't get consistency in your sales engagement process. And most importantly, you can't get consistency in terms of how you're going to fulfill your promise to that type of client. Because if I'm servicing corporates, the way that I service the mining sector should surely be different to the way that I service the hospitality sector, which should surely be different to the way that I service the IT sector, which of course is going to be different to the way that I service the transport sector. Each of those sectors in their own right have a different culture and way of operating. And each of them have a different understanding of the problems they have, and therefore require a different kind of messaging to see that you do get me and you do understand my problem, and yes, you are the right partner to solve it. So chaos can erupt from that part, or where chaos mostly erupts from is when the fulfillment and operations and administration team don't know what's coming down the pipe. If they can't see what's coming up ahead, they can't see how to prepare and organize themselves to meet and fulfill the lead or engagement in a manner that gives a complete experience for that client. I look, for example, personal story. I had to acquire a new computer. And it's a big deal because my way of engaging with everything, being in the service sector, is through the computer. So I listened to the brand, and the brand I went for is a global brand, arguably a really good corporate brand, known for its reliability and certainty. I acquired the machine, top-end machine. When I engaged with the product failed me. When I then engaged with the service required to sort the problem out, that in itself failed me. So when you don't have consistency with the marketing you put out there, with the way that the sales process works, and with the fulfillment of how you as a customer or your customers engage with the service or product you've offered, it creates chaos. And it created chaos in this particular instance because I didn't fit their unique, ideal customer profile. As a business, we are not corporate. And they were hoping and expecting and had put forward a corporate engagement to get the problem solved. So it's led to a very unhappy parting between certainly our organization and this American hardware brand. From Mornay, what area of my business should I focus on first as we open up and begin trading again? Mornay, the only thing that counts is resetting your value propositions. In other words, understanding what's changed in the life and world of your customers. And let's just talk about what that means. In classical marketing, we've got demographics. So now, trust me, our demographics have changed. Demographics is a measure of the things that can be measured. Are you, for example, black or white? Are you male or female? Are you old or young? Do you live in this suburb or that suburb? Do you have a matric or not? Do you have a household income of X or Y? Those are the demographics, and normally that kind of data emerges from the Census Bureau. All of us have got access to it. In my view, it's helpful, but not nearly helpful enough. One of the demographics is this thing called a living standard measure. They have 10 or 12 living standard measures. There's a lot of uncertainty around it, and the marketing fraternity still fight over this. I am apparently an LSM, Living Standard Measure 7, because I don't have two things. The one is an independent standalone freezer, and the second is DSTV. So it's a very old measure and it's not reliable. But we've got demographics. The next thing you have are psychographics. And psychographics point to the way that your customers think and feel about issues, life, and specifically your service. So if I have a household income of R1 million a month, am I going to be worrying about the nutritional value offered in a breakfast cereal? Because my breakfasts are poached eggs and salmon. If I don't have that kind of household income, and I'm acquiring the cereal because I don't have time available to make breakfast, and importantly, I've got to feed a family of 5, then I'm looking for economic as well as health benefits. That would be a feature that matters to me. And that's how we start to understand psychographics. Psychographics point to who is it that you serve in your demographics, but how do they see the service or product that you offer as valuable to them? And the last time I looked is that the only thing people ever buy is a solution to a problem that they have. Sometimes they're aware of the problem, sometimes they're not. To the extent that you understand your customers, you're able to engage with them through a relationship that helps you see the problem that they have, that you believe in doing what you do can solve it for them. The way that you solved those problems and delivered your service and products pre-COVID obviously have to be different now post-COVID. And the only way to understand what that reset looks like is to have a very structured engagement with your clients so they can tell you what you need to do differently, but on a structured, organized manner, so that you can take a view that once you've understood what will work, you can then begin to build the systems behind that in the rebuild phase. Gina, how can you influence your clients if they've restarted with the same inefficiencies as pre-COVID, but remain unwilling to remedy? Necessity will do it for you, Gina. Because certainly what I've seen, and certainly what we've seen as a business, right across our client base, there's not one of our clients that stood still during this COVID period, not one. And through that entire engagement, we were actively involved in doing the reset with the view to do the rebuild over the next 3 to 6 months. The view that I certainly have is that 6 months from now, of all the competitors you had pre-COVID, you might well be left with 70% of them. Of those 70%, 10% of them have started on the front foot because they've done part of the reset during the lockdown period. Those on the back foot have got catch up to do. And I think that those that are ahead are going to take away business from those that are late in arriving. So the way to do it is to consistently deliver the same message, but differently. Because what I've definitely learned is that you can say the same thing again and again and again, and it will not be heard or seen. Because until you, whoever you may be, is under pressure out of sheer necessity to look for an answer to a problem that you didn't recognize you had in the beginning of my engagement with you, eventually that message will land. So say the same thing again and again, say it consistently, but don't say it with a transaction mindset. Say it with a relationship value-adding mindset. The ultimate purpose of any business is that it exists because it solves a problem for the market that you are serving. Sometimes that market takes time to understand, see, and hear the problem. In part, it means that you need to deliver the message differently and creatively, but the same message must be consistently delivered. And I want to ask you folks, how do you think we feel as a business? Through Auric, this is what we are built for. We designed our entire business to be in service of business owners who want to build their businesses into assets of value. And the number of times we engage with business owners who are sailing in these very uncertain seas with leaks and creaks in the base of the ship and crews that don't quite understand what they need to do when they need to do it. And we consistently give and share insight in how to remedy all the impediments to growth. And then we see a client arriving a year later. Some get it earlier, some get it later. It's about being absolutely consistent. And the only way you can be consistent with integrity is to A, be sure you understand who you serve, why you serve them, and how you serve them. You need to understand the cost that they can face and will face without your service. For us, the cost is 94.6% of business owners who build businesses fail to sell them. We fundamentally solve that problem by A, writing the business and positioning it effectively in a competitive market, and then B, through that, building it into an asset that of a day can be sold. I hope that answers your question. Yeah, here's a question, same question again from Ty. If our clients cannot see the woods for the trees and don't fully grasp what their problems are, you don't always know you have a problem. And you know, sadly, what brings a problem to light is often a crisis. If you think about it, let's take Let's take a smoker. Someone smokes and they get pleasure from it, and good to them and good for them. Scientifically, it's shown to harm and impair your health. But you smoke and you smoke and you smoke, and of a day you say, well, I'm going to give up one day. And then something happens with your health, and all of a sudden, that crisis shocks you out of the comfort and out of your status quo, procrastinating that you should have perhaps stopped smoking earlier, into a new path, a new direction. Sometimes it takes a crisis to shock a customer or client into seeing what it is that is impairing their progress and helping them understand through what you're communicating what you can do to remove that impairment. When we talk to business owners, we use analogy a lot for the simple reason that if I have a conversation with you about your business and I can see what the growth impediments are, and I start to talk to you about your business and your growth impediments, it can make you defensive. So we do it largely by communicating through case study and through metaphors. The metaphor of the ship is one that we use actively. I argue to every business owner, how do you spend your time? If it's in the engine room, you're going to hit a certain level of growth and you will never transcend beyond that. If you spend your time in the engine room, in other words, daily in operations, you're building a business that can never be sold. My father recognized this at the age of 76, and my two uncles learned this in their 80s. After 50, 60 years of working in single businesses, they were unable to exit them. It's one of the main reasons why Auric was started. From Nick, this is a great question, Nick, on digitization. How do I choose the right software and processes? Yeah, well, as you know, we've been doing a lot of that with our clients. The view that we have is that you can't digitize the business into success. What you have to do is still get the basics right. And the way that you do that is you've got to go to first principles. Who do you serve? Why do you serve them? And why should they care? If you don't get positioning right, you cannot build lead generation systems. If you don't get lead generation systems working, there's no point in building lead conversion systems. And if you don't get that working, there's no point in building fulfillment systems, because nothing will work. You'll constantly be running from pillar to post. If you get positioning right, and you then start to deliver on that positioning by making sure all the activities that you do in marketing are put into a sequence that can be measured to consistently get your message landing right with your clients. All the activities that you put into a sequence to when a client knocks on your door, you can convert them into a client that is in the sales system, is working. And all the systems you put in place to make sure you can deliver on the promise that sales amplified and marketing communicated is working. That's when you start to digitize. The act of digitization is to enable manual systems that already are working and are aligned to how you've positioned your business. Digitization isn't buying an off-the-shelf product to now suddenly start positioning effectively, getting marketing to work, getting sales to function, and ensuring that your operations will run smoothly. If you don't understand what it is you want to digitize and why you want to digitize it, then how do you understand what package to buy or which app to acquire or who to engage for that matter? You first build in analog first principles, and then you digitize the analog systems that you've created. Guys, there are no more questions coming through. If there are any other questions, you're absolutely welcome to send them through in the chat. I have taken up your time. You have given up your time. I hope it's been valuable. We have spoken for some time, in fact, and I hope you really got value from it. I want to leave you with 3 ideas. The first is, in 6 months, businesses that invest in growth now will without a doubt enjoy the inevitable market upturn. When I say 50% growth in our clients, we're expecting to make up the lost revenues of the last 2 months. Because as a business, we make our money with our clients based on their growth. So our growth mindset has not waned at all. In fact, we've doubled down on it. And we have done so through how we are resetting, rebuilding, and reigniting our clients through our relationships. If you haven't had an opportunity to read Sweat Scale Sell, it's got nothing to do with me having authored it. It really is a valuable book to help you understand how to build a business that would be independent of yourself. In other words, a business built into an asset. If you're in Cape Town and you want to learn more about how we work with you and how we could be of value and service to you and how we can completely eliminate the problem of the 5 growth impediments I shared with you, please contact Johan or Mornay. Their email addresses are there. If you're in the Gauteng area, Marcus and Nick, their email addresses are there. I really hope that we do see you. I hope we have the opportunity to engage. And I really hope that we can carry you and work with you and take you certainly on the growth trajectory that we're seeing with the majority of our clients. And with that, I bid you farewell. Thank you for joining us. And I look forward to seeing you on the other side.